I just want you to go a little bit more into detail. When you said algorithmic protection, what exactly does that mean?
What percentage of your time or your resource time are spent dealing with the social media related issues with students in your school?
You told this committee that you believe kids under the age of 16 should not be on social media. So can you tell why you believe that?
I'm hoping that you can provide a few comments with regards to the creation and use of deepfakes.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Meeting number 19 of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage.
My first questions are going to go to Tiana. I guess I'm just curious, toward the end of your opening remarks, you commented on recommendations that you would leave with the committee. I know that you got cut short. I actually would invite you to repeat the ones that you listed during your opening remarks and perhaps go a little bit deeper in terms of your explanation of those recommendations and why they would be so important to us. And then, of course, to add any additional recommendations that maybe you didn't have the chance to get to at that point in time.
Absolutely. I appreciate that question, especially because I felt definitely the need that there were a few that were left unmentioned. The first being that there have to be monetary consequences for the platforms that fail to comply with Canada's safety regulations and work with the government. And I say that because these are, we call them platforms, they're businesses, they're corporations that make hundreds of millions, billions of dollars off of their consumers. And any other space, we make sure that we have regulations in place for corporations to keep them accountable to their consumers. And unfortunately, what we've seen is it's the monetary piece that keeps these platforms accountable. So that's one that I would, and in BC, we have legislation with regards to non-consensual intimate image sharing, where we do hold companies accountable monetarily. The second one being that there should be straightforward reporting channels with time restrictions on response times. So being able to report anything related to sexual exploitation, child sexual exploitation, or sexual content needs to be not dealt with with an automatic or automated AI bot that decides whether or not it meets the threshold. It should be met with an actual agent and individuals. There needs to be a very quick response time, especially with regards to child sexual exploitation reports. And again, consequences in place if the platforms are not meeting those needs. Mandated minimum age requirements and enforced age verifications. Yes, social media is a powerful tool. I don't believe it's appropriate at all under a certain age. I don't believe that children under the age of 16 should have access to social media platforms because they're not made for children. The ones that they are connecting with are not made for children. And I know that that's a contentious point for many people. I strongly encourage algorithm protection so that minors are not exposed to harmful or inappropriate influencers and are not, predetermined and predestined of what they're going to have, what kind of content is going to be put forth towards them the second they sign up, just because their identity is male or female or whatever their age is. I would like to see a ban on targeted advertising to minors. Because again, it's just a different ballgame. It's not the same as watching TV or a movie and having an ad come in place. I'd like to see oversight for child influencer accounts to prevent exploitation. And of course, and many of these platforms are trying to put this in place, but definitely having a default prevention of adult contact with minors. That's where that age verification piece, I believe, is incredibly important. And this includes restricting direct messages and just a heightened review of sexualized content or accounts with large minor followings.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I just want you to go a little bit more into detail. When you said algorithmic protection, what exactly does that mean?
So as it stands right now, depending on how you sign up on a platform, because a lot of them, they ask your gender or they assume your gender with your age. And what I've seen is if you are a boy and you sign, or if you're a man and you sign up with a social media account, it doesn't matter what your interests are. You are fed a very specific type of content. It's predetermined. It is predestined for what you're going to consume. And that content is oftentimes shocking, violent, provocative. And then it kind of, leads especially young boys who don't have that ability to maintain so much control over their consuming of content, just access to vulnerability. So when I say algorithmic protections, I'm talking about these platforms not being able to predetermine an algorithm based off of somebody's identity when they're signing up if they are a minor.
Thank you. No, I thank you very much. I understand that and definitely see your point there. I guess I want to dive a little bit deeper into one more point that you made, and that was just with regards to increasing the minimum age that a person needs to be in order to have a social media account. So recently we've seen Australia implement legislation that requires a person to be 16 years of age or older in order to hold an account. I'd be curious about your thoughts on that. You also talk about meaningful age verification, so I would suppose that would be the way you would suggest we make sure that that's enforceable. But maybe you can just dive a little bit deeper into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're seeing Denmark do that. We're seeing Australia do that. I just don't want to see Canada be left behind. I think it's necessary because these social media platforms, just the way that they work, the dynamics, again, these are companies that intentionally use their systems and even the language in which they define the tools that the platform provides. I mean, it's just harmful, and it's going to result in harm. So I think that as a government, and again, this holds the accountability to the platforms where we have a minimum age, and that, again, not all platforms are created the same. So that verification can be flexible depending on what kind of platform we're talking about. I think that it would be effective. And age verification, I mean, people are concerned about security. Well, they already have all the information that they need. A kid showing their passport photo so that they can be protected from exploitation and violence and self-harm, I think is well worth it when that information is already out there for these companies.
You've previously noted that, and I quote, children and teens are constantly bombarded with images of influencers living their best lives, and that this changes how they see themselves. From your experience, how does this reality impact the way in which young people talk about their confidence or self-image?
It's being compared to a reality that does not exist, especially with the influencers that we see right now, and especially with the ones that these kids follow. We're looking at a curated life, a life where money comes easily, where beauty standards are unrealistic without Botox and filler and filters. They're comparing themselves to something that is absolutely not real and is fabricated. And it's very difficult for them to tell the difference. I mean, back in the day when we read teen magazines, that in itself was harmful to our self-esteem. But you're looking at constant, hours of scrolling of these standards that are just not based in reality. And it does have an effect. It does have an influence.
28,000 students in the Board of Education. You mentioned the RAP program. I'm going to mention it a little bit because it started in 2003. Now you're in 14 high schools in not only the public division, but the Catholic division. It's the Restorative Action Program, where you have somebody from outside the school division actually in schools, and maybe talk about the trust then that is needed for students along with this RAP person that all of a sudden is in these schools every day now.
Well, the RAP workers are trained in mediation, and they're often social workers or teachers. In the Catholic division, they're teachers. In the public division, they're social workers. And so students will often share, they approach them as if counselors, or they reach out to them for help, especially with bullying and a lot of these online platform issues that we're seeing. Like we're seeing like so many different facets of technology harms, like even just these large group chats between, like we'll have, for instance, the Chinese kids will all have a massive group chat together. And so then issues will come out of that. And so then our RAP workers will step in and help to sort out those problems. And so there is a lot of trust between students and RAP, yes.
What percentage of your time or your resource time are spent dealing with the social media related issues with students in your school?
Well, as counselors, we often hear it first, and then we refer to administrators or to RAP, depending on the severity of what we're hearing. Certainly, we then pick up the side of helping kids to deal with the fallout of the things that have happened, so supporting them to manage the anxiety and the large emotional issues that can often come with some of the things that we're seeing.
What's school to deal with some of these issues, and are they very successful? Some are.
Most are not. To be honest, like I'm the mother of 4 daughters and my oldest child is 33. So she went through high school when MSN first came in. And honestly, since then, our school resource officers will tell us all the time that all of the issues come from, or not all of them, but the majority of our issues are coming from online behavior, and it happens outside of school, and then it gets brought into the schools, and so that's why schools are so intertwined in all of these things. Certainly, it's a daily occurrence, dealing with kids and the fallout of stuff that's happening online.
What would you like to see from us as
Well, certainly we'd like to see platforms when we approach them to take down images. Like right now, the only way we're able to get images and harmful things taken down quickly is by investigating and finding the person, the perpetrator of it, and then getting that person to take it down. When we've reached out to platforms because of privacy laws and those kinds of things, they really circumvent responsibility for being able to remove images or false fake accounts. And so that would be one for sure. Age, 100% age verifications. Just based on children's brain development. Like kids that are under the age of 16, they just don't have the capacity to be able to manage what Tiana was saying about these platforms are not designed for children. They were designed for adults. And now we're asking 8 and 9-year-olds to navigate that. And it's really scary. The other piece of it is we can teach them how to be better online and to recognize when there's harms coming. In saying that, it's so addictive. The kids are so addicted to it that they know a lot of kids, they're being bullied through Snapchat and they can't stop looking. So the reality is we can't put it in the kids' hands. We have to help to support. I think we need to mesh the two, teach them how to be good citizens and how to be better at being online, but we also need to protect them by putting in some significant measures. And I think age is a huge one.
No, sorry, you're ahead of time. You're well over.
Ms. Sharifi, first of all, thanks for the work that you do for the Center for Exploitation Education. You told this committee that you believe kids under the age of 16 should not be on social media. So can you tell why you believe that and what you recommend as wider solutions to protect kids who are on social media?
Absolutely. one thing that I will say is that, when we're talking about social media or access to the internet, it's not something that happens at a certain designated time. Kids are online right now 24/7. It's just the online world, the in-person world, it is intertwined. So the idea that we can monitor our kids online, or that we can have, just teach them and then that's going to be enough. And again, as somebody who educates kids, like we see the effect of education. It is effective. I'm not denying that. However, by not creating restrictions, especially age restrictions, we're putting the onus on parents. And as a parent, as an educator, yes, education is effective. As a parent, it's not enough. It's not enough. If you are parenting a child, we're not around 24/7. I give my child is 5. I gave her my phone for 2 seconds. She ordered 12 banana loaves from Starbucks. So that control and that monitoring, it's just not there. One other thing, and Stacey pointed to this as well, and we know that kids, they have not developed their prefrontal cortex. Yes, they can critically think. Yes, they should have agency. And yes, they are brilliant. However, they are still youth. We cannot expect them to be able to deal with what comes with social media use. We can teach them the signs of grooming. And again, it's effective. However, at the same time, if these children, which they all do, have the need for belonging, attention, love, acceptance, community, they're still vulnerable regardless of however much information and knowledge that they have. And so, and these platforms, again, just the nature of the way that these platforms work, are we going to ask all the platforms, and are they going to oblige to put safety over freedom of speech? Are they going to be monitoring every single type of content that is being put out there? Are they going to be able to have control over every individual and the direct messages being sent to minors? Because in my experience, the levels of grooming, predators reaching out to kids, kids being exposed to harmful content, and just their unlimited access to so much information that they should not have access to, we're not going to be able to monitor them and teach them enough that in itself would keep them safe. So again, those age verifications, I think that there should be a minimum age. I think that when we talk about having these, there were actually a couple apps that did come out with age verification where they used AI. It was extremely effective. We tried to get around it in multiple different ways. We couldn't. They were extremely effective. If you tried to get around it, you were blocked from creating another account on the platform. So there are ways that we can get around this. Yes, it will be costly, but the life of children is priceless. And I think that it's even more costly when we're seeing the cost of exploitation and grooming and the aftermath of having to deal with those things. So, moderation is important. Education and equipping kids is critical, but we also have to hold these corporations who've created businesses that are not safe for kids or made for kids to give, free access for these children and youth to be on these platforms, and leave it to the parents to be able to monitor that.
What do you think of Instagram for teens? Is that a good thing, bad thing?
I'm going to speak very bluntly here. I don't believe Mark Zuckerberg cares about our kids, period. Meta does not care about our kids. I think Instagram for teens is a problem, and it's just another way for them to make money. And the safeguards that they are claiming to have in place and what they're going to do is just not going to be enough. There are social media platforms that are being created specifically for young people. Those are wonderful. We should do that. But again, putting that trust and that ownership on companies like Meta, who've shown time and time again they don't care. I think Instagram for teens is harmful, period.
Your kid going on the internet to Google something is very different than going on Instagram or Facebook. And the algorithm is part of that difference. I totally agree on digital literacy. Sometimes I wonder the extent to which digital literacy can handle the algorithm. I feel like it can help us to a great extent. Of course, it helps us understand how the algorithm works, which is always valuable. But I think the question we're asking ourselves is the algorithm such that it makes regulation very difficult, or the nuance of digital literacy enough to handle it for a young person? Whereas it's not just about disinformation and information. It's not just about the quality of the content they're getting. It's about being reinforced on feelings of acceptance or, anger and all of these things. So I guess maybe, Andre, you could speak to the challenge of regulating, social media or the algorithm itself, and as opposed to online spaces. I think sometimes we there's a confluence of the two that maybe is not always helpful.
Sure. So it's a great question, and I really agree with the way you framed that. I think, there are broader questions around like all of our addiction, like to our devices, the way we engage on these devices, and then there are specific sets of questions related to social media platforms and other types of platforms or apps on those devices. I think that, really our view is Canada has been working at this for 5 years now. How do we get to a place where we regulate social media? Our view is we were very close at the end of the last parliament. We were very close to a bill that could get through, and it was a bit of a compromise package. And basically what it would have done is put duty of care on, or duty of responsibility on platforms with a focus on the 7 categories of harmful content. So put requirements on them to deal with those, with specific onus on the 2 most egregious, a specific focus on kids, with a regulator who could actually effectively oversee these things. I think we just need to move forward with those things. I think what we've learned is we need heightened provisions to focus on kids, and I think we've talked about a lot of those. We've learned a lot even in the last year or two on, Tiana speaks so thoughtfully about influence, for example, and how that space has been evolving. I think obviously the impacts of AI is something that we'll need to consider, but I just think we need to get on with it, and I don't think we need to go back to square one. I think we know the broad strokes of what we have to do, and what I hope is that the government, which has signaled that it should be coming with a bill soon, and that Parliament, who's had a couple cracks previously at going through this legislation, just recognizes the urgency of moving this through quickly. And just in closing, I would just say, I think all of us have to deal with these broader issues of how we're adapting to our screen time. I am a terrible influence on my kids. My wife and I will have our screens in front of our faces. So there's a broader set of kind of social issues, social norms that we all need to think about, and then there's a specific set that we need to deal with on social media. This is the way I think about it.
Sure. Tiana, I'm going to come back to you. I'm hoping that you can provide a few comments with regards to the creation and use of deep fakes. I know that this is something that you have some expertise on. On your website, you state that, quote, over 90% of deepfake content online is pornographic in nature, which is alarming, and especially when it's often young people who are used to make these images. I would love for you to expand on what you're observing and the impact that this is having on young people and how we might be able to avoid this in the future.
Absolutely. It is, I would say this is one of the largest trends that we're seeing. It's these AI deepfake models have completely changed the game from peer exploitation all the way to predation and sextortion. So there's millions of child sexual abuse materials that are being generated constantly through these deepfakes. And so what we're seeing is, number one, peers are now using these AI tools to create deepfakes of other peers. Sometimes it's for blackmail. Sometimes it's for entertainment, oddly enough. And then we're also seeing that sextortion the grooming into sextortion has completely changed. So the number of boys that are reaching out to us because some person they were speaking to was able to take just one picture that they had on their profile and use that to create a deep fake nude, and then sextort them, blackmail them. There's an alarming rate of that happening. When we talk about, prevention, again, like number one is certain tools should just not be accessible. That's just number one. Number two is that education piece for young people. And it's something that I think we're missing, where we can't just talk about digital literacy and not incorporate consent and healthy boundaries into that conversation, and really showing the parallel of what that looks like in person and online. I think that we're noticing, again, just because of the nature of what kids are exposed to on social media, that there is almost a normalization of using somebody's content against them and without their knowledge and without their consent. And so, I think that those would be my two recommendations, is if there's a way to flag these platforms because they're not on the dark web. And also if there's a way that we can start to engage in prevention education for our young people.
Thank you for that. I'm actually just going to take you one step back, and that is actually just for the sake of this report and its content. I'm actually going to ask you to describe what a deepfake is and how it's created.
Absolutely. Deepfake is just essentially any kind of imagery that is created by AI that is not real, it's not the actual person, it's based off of a person. And so what we're seeing when we say deep fake, we're talking about an AI generated image, oftentimes off of a real individual. So when I'm using the terminology deep fake nude, I'm referring to an AI tool that is using one person's picture, a real picture of a person, to then generate a nude image or video of them.
That. And I'm also hoping that you can talk a little bit about also some of the research that you've done with regards to AI and how it can be used to detect human trafficking online. One of the things that I was reading was some research that you did within BC, and you did some research with regards to sex work ads in British Columbia. And you found that 40% of the ads pointed to sex trafficking and child exploitation. Maybe just comment on that.
Absolutely. AI is a powerful tool. Technology is a powerful tool. It can be used for good. And of course, when individuals like myself and professionals in this space come to use it, it can have great effect. So my role in that research project was that we were training these web crawlers to detect situations and instances of human trafficking. And so my role as an expert in the space was to come up with the content that would train them. So in black and white terms, how would we determine if a posting on these common escort sites is actually indicative of somebody being trafficked, or of child exploitation and child trafficking? And yes, we did find 40% of those were definitively instances of trafficking. It would be a much larger percentage if our threshold for definitive was not at least 3 different categories in what we had outlined to be indicators of trafficking.